Love that little technology that made us not have to start a new stream. But top 5 teams with quarterback problems, and I think that after 3 weeks we can safely say that some of this list is going on, that they do have problems. Number 5, Nebraska. And Smokey, I'll let you speak to this. I know that they're probably excited with the way that Harburg played against Eastern Illinois, but it seems like they're going to be kind of maybe sifting through guys throughout the season, especially based on the health of Jeff Sims, who did not play well in the first 2 games. But Matt Rule in year 1, and I don't think there were super high expectations. But right now they've got quarterback issues.
Yeah, they do. The young man played well, young local kid. He didn't throw for a lot. He ran well enough. He got some guts to him, but that was a team that they should have beaten easily, and they did in Northern Illinois. It was a little bit close there for a little bit. And then they lost 2 running backs. Did you hear about that? Mm-hmm. Johnson's out. The kid that came in, I believe, from maybe not U.S. Yeah, Irvin's out. So they lost 3 players, 2 of them running backs, and the running back room was not all that good in the first place.
Well, get ready because this is kind of life with Matt Rule, honestly. I don't think you're ever going to really see elite quarterback play. Is that fair? This reminds me very much of when he first got here and brought in Jalen McClendon, and the next thing you know, it was Anu Solomon.
Yeah, from
that
Arizona,
was a big ball of nothing. Yeah. All due respect to Anu, and then it was Jalen McClendon the following year, and it's it was fine, but it was mostly the Charlie Brewer show. So at least my experience watching, he's never had super high level quarterback play, and that's just kind of part of what they do. Is they mostly are just a defensive team that runs the football and hits on some big plays here and there. Maybe Harburg could do some of that for him, but I don't think he's really filling huge shoes, guys. I don't think Jeff Sims was doing anything that you're like, oh my God, they don't have Jeff Sims for the next however many games. I don't know what his status is, but Sims was fine, but very turnover prone.
He was not fine. He wasn't even fine.
I'm trying to be nice.
No, I know, but I'm just he was a turnover machine.
Right. So point being, this might actually be a blessing in disguise for them.
But they did get quarterback was sacked early inside the 10. That led to an easy score for Northern Illinois. So the turnovers, no matter who the quarterback, but none of them were dumb turnovers like they had, or silly turnovers like they had in the first couple of weeks.
Number 4. Tennessee. I would not have said this a few weeks ago. I was really big on Joe Milton, but after watching the game against Florida where he was, look, he's got some RPMs behind every throw, that's for sure, but he doesn't know. He's like Nuke Lelouch right now. He doesn't know where it's going to go, and that's not good news for Tennessee as they move forward, and you just heard Phil Bennett talk about it. The SEC is up for grabs maybe as it's been in a long time, and that Florida win over Tennessee was very telling. And Tennessee, look, they hit it right. They had Hendon Hooker last year. That was a great transfer that worked out for them. Joe Milton looked like he was poised to step in, especially after that fantastic bowl performance he had against Clemson. But I think, much like a pitcher with a live arm, some days he's going to strike out every batter he faces, and some days
you don't know where it's going.
Don't dig into the box because it's coming at your skull. So, and not on purpose. So I think that's what Tennessee's dealing with right now.
Yeah, that really reached a fever pitch in the second half. Fans wanting Nico Iamaleava to get into the game, and understandably so. And he's a big-time prospect, a big-time NIL guy from all indications. And they said, in the past that they don't plan on redshirting him. So I would imagine that we're not that far off from potentially seeing some more of the young star in Nico versus what we saw from Saturday and Joe Milton. That's not going to be sustainable for them or for their expectations. So, yeah, there is some question there. This is not Hendon Hooker 2.0 by any means.
Yeah. Number 3, Houston. We sat with Dana Holgerson at Big 12 Media Days, and he kind of said, what you need to know about Donovan Smith. And he said if the interceptions he threw against them when he was at Texas Tech, and basically if we can get that solved, then everything else is gravy. Well, right now they haven't gotten it solved at Houston, and they're got a talent problem on their roster right now. A lot to do with the transfer portal. They kind of knew some of this was coming, but man, Donovan Smith so far has not lit it up for them.
No, he hasn't, and he didn't really light it up in Lubbock. I mean, he had some moments there and some games where, he played pretty well, but he's been and continues to be a turnover guy, and a big at the wrong time turnover guy was really the case in Lubbock a lot last year. But, yeah, it hasn't gotten off to a banner start. He's got 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Not throwing very well completion percentage wise. It's just not good. It's just not good. But you're also making it even worse coming off of an era of Clayton Tune where he was a pretty good player for you for several years in a row, and now it's a noticeable drop off in that regard, and just the rest of the team around them. They're kind of scrambling for answers, especially on offense, which is not great when your head coach is Dana Holgerson, and that's supposed to be his expertise, his offense and quarterbacks and things like that, and that's right now their biggest Achilles. So, it has not been good, but I don't know what great options that they have at this point.
Number 2, Oklahoma State. You're running 3 quarterbacks into any game. Unless you are up by 70 points, it's not a good thing. And you're running 3 quarterbacks into a game where you're absolutely getting knocked around by a Sun Belt team at your place is even worse news. And Craig, I was, back and forth. I'm kind of bullish on peak Spencer Sanders as a really good player. Mm-hmm. But you don't get to see it all the time because he deals with so many injuries, and then sometimes he gets really sloppy and he creates turnovers. But 2 years ago, we saw Spencer Sanders take Oklahoma State all the way to the Big 12 title game and play really well against every single team that they played against except Baylor. Those are the 2 games he did not play well against, and those are the 2 of the games that they lost.
And 2 happen to be a really good defensive team.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought this would be a huge loss for them, especially given that who they were bringing in to replace him. I didn't know that I just kind of thought and entrusted Mike Gundy's quarterback recruiting over the years to where even if he's got guys who aren't, have ceilings as high as Spencer Sanders, even though that person may not reach it, he's always managed to get guys who are Mason Rudolphs of the world and Brandon Whedon's, guys who could win games for them and were NFL guys, to be quite honest with you, maybe not long-time starters, but NFL players. But, man, I did not see this coming on their quarterback depth chart.
Yeah, you hoped that Alan Bowman was like an answer when you grabbed him out of the transfer portal, but it turns out he was another option, and that's not what you were looking for. You look at the numbers for all 3 guys, and they've all 3 played pretty significantly at this point. Have had number of opportunities to throw the ball around, to run, to show what they've got, and they're all pretty much the same. I mean, there's not any discernible differences really between any of the 3 of them. That's even more alarming. There's not like a guy who's grabbed the lead and he's taking off and running with the baton. They're all just kind of the same, and there's not someone poised to break out and be the superstar of the future, to be the next Spencer Sanders. It's just 3 guys who you just hope when you throw them out there, one of them just eventually catches fire and all right, he's the guy. But they all go out there and they get doused, or it's very fleeting. And so, yeah, it's a mess. And, I have faith that Mike Gundy will eventually figure it out, but I think to be at this spot heading into the season and to be at the spot you are just 3 weeks into the season or a month into the season is awfully disconcerting, obviously disappointing if you're an Oklahoma State fan, and you just expect better at that spot because they have had a lot of really good players, but that is not the case right now. And it doesn't help that their offensive line is not good at all, and they can't have a run game to complement and help out their quarterbacks, no matter who it is. So at least with Spencer Sanders, he could take off running, but you don't have that guy now. So again, they're all kind of they're all similar in what they've done performance-wise so far, and I just wonder how long you can keep running 3 horses before eventually something has to give. But it doesn't appear like they've got an end game in sight just yet.
And number 1, Alabama, and the reason they're number 1 is obvious. Look, they've had just the revolving door of Nick being able to go to the quarterback machine and even kind of slightly upgrade. You go okay, you got the Brody Crowells and Greg McElroys, then you kind of tick it up to a guy like A.J. McCarron,
Was Coker one of those? Or was
Coker. Yeah, Coker. And then you tick it up. You got A.J. McCarron, okay, he's an NFL guy, but not nobody who's going to start for 20 years. And then you tick it up to Mac Jones, Jalen Hurts, Tua, and now Bryce Young. He may have used all the tokens in the machine for a little while.
2 guys started Sunday Night Football last night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they've got 4 guys starting out of the 32 teams in the NFL. 4 that are starting in the NFL right now. So sometimes maybe you do run out of tokens in the QB machine, and maybe that's what he did here. Milroe's going to start, and I would assume probably for the rest of the season, barring another attitude problem or anything else like that. But it is surprising to me to see that they have so many guys that are not ready to go even after Milroe, even a little bit, right there on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, you just have it so good for so long. I mean, eventually the run, or the well dries up. It happens to the best of them. But yeah, I think just the success they had was also something that worked against them, right? You can't hold on to everybody and just have this stacked quarterback room, and eventually guys move on. But because you kept hitting on so many great players one after the other, that it was just you're bound to run out at some point. And I'm not giving up on Jalen Milroe. I think he can still win some games. I think he's still got a lot of room to grow, but he's just not near that level of the guys that they've had. And that's not a knock on him. That says how high that level has been for so long that, yeah, sorry, he's not a starting quarterback in the NFL automatically, like the past 7 guys or whatever out of the last, 8 or whatever the number actually is. Not like those guys, but yeah, they don't have the guy right now, and they've had the guy pretty much every year for as long as we can remember, but that's just not the case this time around, and they're having to deal with it and having to learn kind of how life is on the other side and how normal this is for most teams, year in and year out. It's a rude awakening for them, but I think that they'll find a way to improve Milroe as they go along. It just might not be up to Alabama standards.
UT went from Vince Young,